Hello, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Right now, the webinar technically is not scheduled to begin until 1/4 past the hour. So, but this is kind of the behind the scenes here. So as our presenters log in and get adjusted, you'll be joining us for a bit of chat as we go on here. But the content itself is not scheduled to begin until about 1/4 past the hour. However, this webinar is in nature all about questions and chat and going on there. It's really an unscripted kind of event. So if you have any questions or comments or just want to join in on the talk, you know, put them in the chat, put them in the questions, and we'll make sure we address it. If you want to actually join the dialogue, we'll give you the opportunity to do that as well. You can raise your hand and say, hey, I want to ask a question, I want to be unmuted, and we'll unmute you and let you ask your question of any of our panelists as well. So this is really kind of a fun event if you haven't been to one of these before. So keep an eye out for that. At the end of the event too, we'll also have a giveaway for the event, and we've got a pretty sweet Yeti microphone setup that will be given away as well. So, but we'll do that towards the end of the event. So make sure you stay on to find out if you've won for that.
So Simon, where did you say you are? You're in the UK?
Simon might be muted. We're having some audio challenge right now. I know he had said one of his AirPods is was not working, so.
I'm not sure he can hear us.
Yeah. Funny story about that. I just got a new pair of those AirPods for Christmas, and back in February, I did a virtual Scotch tasting with a bunch of people, and it went a little long, and I was hurried off to bed after a long night of tasting different Scotches and whatnot. Threw them in my pocket, put them in through the wash. Didn't realize I had done it. I took one of those little desiccant packets out of one of my pill bottles and put it in a Ziploc bag, let it sit for about 3 or 4 days, right as rain. No
I
issues.
think they're waterproof. Aren't they the latest generation waterproof?
Yeah, I don't know that mine are the latest generation. They're not like the pros or anything like that. I'm not sure what generation they are, but I was a little concerned because when I first put them in, you couldn't hear anything out of them. So I was a little concerned by that, but man, they worked. Now the little charging thing didn't go through it. It was the ear things, whatever. But ever since then, I've been very cautious about making sure they go back in the charging cradle when I take them out of my ears.
I did that to my first iPhone. You know, not used to having an iPhone. You know, many years ago, I had the first one, and sure enough, I put it in my pants pocket and washed it, and it never woke up again.
Yeah.
Yep, I was not happy.
So just a reminder to everyone that's joined us, this is an unscripted event. This is not the actual start of the event. The event doesn't start for about another 11 minutes or so here. So this is kind of the behind the scenes look at people and the presenters as we log in, and it's just a little bit of chit chat, kind of just our little warm up as we talk about things and get ready for our presentation today. So, but again, if you have any questions, comments, want to join in on anything, feel free to direct them via the questions and or chat window, and we'll invite you into the conversation. You know, even if that's that you want to be unmuted and ask your question and have a dialogue from any of our presenters, we welcome that as well. So looks like we got Jason Smith on.
And Kyle and Simon hear us now?
Morning, Jason. How are you? Yeah, just Simon.
Doing fine. Yep, sound good. Yeah, when you register for the webinar, it says it starts at 12:15, doesn't it, Ray? Or does it?
1/4 past the hour. Yep.
It says it's yeah. But we always have early people log in, and so I can see we've got quite a few more than normal logged in too. So it is an unplugged look at a little slice of our lives sometimes when you log in early, and it's meant to be so. I'm coming to you from just north of Atlanta today, in Alpharetta, Georgia. little unplugged action here is the temperature where I am, and this is in Fahrenheit. Top one is outdoors, and the bottom one is a chilly basement office.
Yeah, buckle down. You got some tornadoes coming your way tonight.
That's what I understand. I was telling I was just on a podcast with Doug Brown, Simon, just moments ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was saying one of the things that surprised me is how Amazon has kept up with deliveries. We do have a forecasted for rough weather, tornadic like weather, and it's common in the spring where we live. And we've got an older dog that hates storms, just cannot stand them. So, and she's getting worse and worse as she's older. And my wife said, well, I wonder if one of these thunder coats will work. I don't know if you've heard of these. You know, you wrap these, put them on your dog and you buckle them. They're sort of like almost like a little sweater you put on your dog, but this is a golden retriever. So it's so she saw one on Amazon. She said yesterday morning, and we're supposed to get that weather starting last night. And she said, this one says same day, and we're not in the city, so we usually don't get same day deliveries where I am. She said, well, I'll try to order it anyway. It's got good reviews. She looked through it. Sure enough, at 5:30, we got the thunder coat, but you'll never guess how it was delivered. And it wasn't the drone thing that
That'd be cool.
Someone in their car on their way home?
It was maybe on the way home. It was someone in a Mustang Cobra with racing stripes right down the hood that pulled up in the driveway at 5 p.m. yesterday.
Wow.
And holding a box from Amazon, and a guy you wouldn't think's driving. So I don't know what kind of system they may have in this area, but it may be akin to like Uber for Amazon or something. I don't know.
You know, for a while there, we have a distribution center not far from our house, up just over the state line in Wisconsin, because I'm in the Chicago area. And so there's a lot of people that work at the Amazon thing. And I think they were giving bonuses at one point to employees to deliver packages on their way home.
Wow.
It's amazing that they can even get that package down out of the warehouse and into that person's hands out of the thousands of packages to me. And it came from Chattanooga, which is 2.5 hours away from me up at the Tennessee line.
So, yeah.
I was surprised. The sorts of things we chat about when we're getting warmed up for Unplugged. This one was a little different today. Anybody have any new hobbies since COVID? 1 year ago, I guess this week, started locking down shopping.
Amazon shopping. It's not Amazon shopping. It's we have a website over here called hotukdeals.co.uk, and you can basically put into the app anything you want, right? You could say Apple, Mac, M1 chip, PlayStation 5, whatever it might be, right? And it will just scour the web, and every day it will just send you little updates going, I've just found this $20 cheaper, $50 cheaper,
oh wow,
$150 off. It's terrible. It is an addiction. If you're not careful, it is an addiction shopping for tech. Yeah, that's my hobby. Not that I'm always buying it,
right.
But I'm just browsing, right?
A friend of mine once said the want is better than the have sometimes.
Sometimes sometimes that is very true. I was looking at that the other day actually, because I got an iPhone. What's this? An XS? Yeah, this one here. And this is a nice phone. It was actually an insurance refurbished one, because I dropped the first one in the water. They're not waterproof, and even though they say they are. And you sort of look at it and you think, well, I'd love the one with the 3 cameras on the back, and I'd like the new design and all the rest of it. And then you look at it and you think, does the battery last? Yes. Does it perform? Yes. Can I take pictures? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I really need to go and spend $1,000 on something that I don't need? So 100%, the want is
better than the have.
Correct.
Unless it comes to iGel or Liquidware solutions, then the have is better.
Maybe, yeah. I would do a shout out. Anybody that is listening in that has got any experience with mesh Wi-Fi systems, then please come forward and tell me any recommendations, because that is something that I both want and need and will have. because yeah, I desperately need to sort of make sure that my house has got far better Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Wi-Fi seems to be the about cause of arguments in lockdown.
Oh, nice. Well,
Yeah,
looks like
yeah.
Ray raised his hand. He's got a
I
little
did.
experience.
Yeah, about a year, maybe 2 years ago, our CTO, Jason Maddox, had recommended a system to me. He added one to his house, and I went with the Google Mesh. Um, and so the only thing I'll say with that is it may say that it covers your entire house, but I did end up buying, like, I think I've got a total of 4 of the pods for my house, just to cover different levels, because I've got the basement, I've got the main floor, and then I've got a second story in our house. And we're still getting a little bit of dead spot, but through all of this, with everything that's going on, my kids have been doing their remote learning. My wife is working at home. I'm working at home. No
Yeah.
one's complaining about the speed. Every now and then you'll hear, oh, Wi-Fi went out. Well, there was a blip because somebody did something in the neighborhood or whatever for 5 minutes or whatever, but it's been very reliable for us, and I really can't complain about it too much.
Oh, I appreciate the
Yeah.
recommendation.
I
Yeah.
put the Orbi system in, which is made by Netgear, I think, over at my mom's house, and she had Wi-Fi since they bought that house 10 years earlier, 12 years earlier, and it really was. Other than the initial, there was an update I had to do. It wasn't real intuitive, and then, well, the new system, so that wouldn't be the problem. The new system that they had and the little web app just was real intuitive, and I put it in about a year ago, and it fixed it. And it was just the two device thing.
Well, the biggest thing, I do a lot of diagnostics for work from home stuff with Stratosphere, so I can track, not only the SSID but also the BSID, which is the MAC address of the access point you're talking to. And the biggest problem I find is people running 5 gigahertz, and they're bleeding over and bouncing back and forth between different access points. Lock it down to 2.4, and you'll have much better. It's not as fast, but I mean, 2.4 is still 180 megabytes a second. So 5 gigahertz is faster, but it doesn't go through walls very well. So lock your devices down to 2.4, and you will have a much more stable connection.
Yeah, I've literally just gone from a 35 meg copper pair connection to, I think I spoke to you guys yesterday, right? A coax connection coming in. So I've gone from 35 meg download to 535 meg. But what's quite interesting now is the further I move away from the router, my download speed is dropping, but my upload speed is not. And I can't quite get my head around that, because I'm like, surely if the connection is that, if the signal is dropping and the noise is increasing and affecting the download, why is it not affecting the upload?
Your antennas are better on your router. So your machine can transmit, the router can pick it up, but when the router's transmitting it to you, you've got a smaller antenna. Kyle, does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and that's the best answer I've had. That's 10 times better than the answer.
Just made that up. Send me 1 Bitcoin, and we're good to go.
No problem, Chris. It's in the post. You've solved about 8 hours worth of Googling last night, which was like, I don't understand. Why is this the case? But that's probably it, right?
I made that up. I made that up. I'd be interested to see what Kyle thinks of that. That sounded like a good reason.
Absolutely. It must be.
Yes,
and that's could be the foil on your windows, Simon. Is it the foil on your windows causing interference?
10-foot high.
We don't run Windows at iJoe, remember?
No, you're physical Windows.
We don't need Windows.
We're at the top, we're at the quarter past the hour, so we're officially at the start of the session today, and I think this was a great way. So what you've been seeing is kind of the behind the scenes of starting today's presentation, but this is really what it's all about. People have questions, we want to help answer them and have this dialogue from it. So as a reminder to anybody who just came in, we invite you to ask questions, give us comments, we'll bring them up. Just in our little talk here, we had Kamis from Montreux City in Egypt, and sorry if I butchered all of that, but he said he said hello, and hope we have a great webinar today. So somebody else, Trevor, suggested a site, and I think this is maybe a shopping one, up on Reddit out there as well. So going back to what we were talking about. So we hope people chime in, but with Camise, welcoming everybody, maybe we should do a quick roundtable and just kind of say who we are and introduce ourselves, and then we can go ahead and start with the presentation. I'm Ray Swanson. I'm the Director of Global Marketing here at Liquidware, and I'm kind of the facilitator for today. We'll just kind of go around the room. And Kyle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Ray. Thanks. So I'm Kyle Wilson. I'm an SE for iGel, based out of the Southeast U.S., covering Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, and Florida. So luckily we've had some pretty good weather down here. I've been with iGel a couple of years now. Looking forward to the dialogue here today.
Yep, so that would be, I think I'm the next camera, at least on my logical order here. So I'm Jason Smith. I lead product marketing management over at Liquidware, and also will, as with Ray, be your co-host over here on the Liquidware side for the Unplugged session. Simon?
Simon Townsend. I look after marketing at iGel. I think I've probably been in the EUC industry for about 20 years. I've had a number of different roles. Predominantly, a lot of those have been from a sort of like a technology side of things. So I've run various sales engineering teams and been a field-based CTO at times. Worked with my good friend Jason here for many, many years. And yeah, looking forward to having a good conversation about all things EUC. Thanks for joining.
My name is Chris Walker. I'm a field SE based out of Athens, Georgia, which is right outside of Atlanta. Mainly focus on my stratosphere solutions, do a lot with iGel from monitoring diagnostic standpoint. And it's a rainy, overcast day here in Atlanta.
It is, which is where I'm coming in from. So thanks to the panel for joining us. iGel, always a hot topic when we talk about iGel on podcasts. If we do any sessions, it is very interesting that we have a well-attended audience, and that is no different today. We can see the numbers continuing to climb. Thank you for joining us. And what we had advertised for this session is Liquidware Unplugged. If you haven't joined us, you got a good taste of like our personal life and maybe some technology that we have as a hobby or something like that, or what we've got going on at home. That's the nature of Unplugged. We highly, as Ray said, ask that you submit questions, and we'll even take you off mute if you'd like. You can ask it live, and if you wish, we'll even leave you on, and you can be a member of our panel. And if we don't like what you have to say, we'll just hit the mute button. How's that? So we'd be glad to have any of you on as our panel. Thank you for joining us. But the subject for today was happy users, happy life. And I think I came up with that because there's a saying, happy wife, happy life. And I'm sure the same could go for the husband. But ensuring the best user experience with Liquidware and iGel. And it's not just ensuring the best experience with Liquidware and iGel, but the overall Windows session. And you'll see how that is today. And further summarizing the abstract that we put forward, that we've seen a big change in this industry over the last 12 months. And Liquidware and iGel were able to separately help with business continuity in the industry and we hope everyone is doing well. We hope that the businesses that you're involved in are doing well, or at least starting to emerge from any lockdown or anything that had hampered you, and even your personal situation. We hope you're doing well. We like to share some of the stories and how we have helped, but also the ways that we're collaborating together to make sure that when you shift workers to a work from home, work from anywhere, remote workforce, that you're able to fully see that user experience to keep your users productive along the way because of these drastic shifts that we saw take place. And what we believe is that a lot of organizations did what they could to get by until the end of the year. And when they saw that we're still going to have to think about and be careful about bringing our workforce back slowly, allow some users to work from home for the foreseeable future. We believe that a lot of organizations are looking at now, how can we go back? How can we make sure that we have the most rock solid solution in place beyond just getting by last year? And how can we put in play best practices for connecting users from the edge with something like the iGel Edge OS, and knowing that user experience in the end with something like Stratosphere user experience. So our panel is well equipped to talk about this today, because we've got the two system engineers on from iGel, and then we've got Simon and myself on that have years of experience in the user environment management market, and Ray as well, to make us all behave. So without further ado, Ray Swanson, have you seen any other questions come in yet before we get
No, I think go ahead and kick it off. I think people may be a little shy to step up to the microphone just yet, but I did see Jonathan said iGel Ice here. But otherwise it's just been pretty light comments. So please feel free to direct them to the question and or chat window.
Sure.
Chris has got his hand up.
Yep, I got a question. In my many travels with my customers and monitoring Stratosphere and even the iGel UD pockets and things like that, I haven't found anything that you guys can't connect to. I mean, I'm got you connected to Azure, Amazon, Citrix, VMware. I mean, y'all pretty much cover all the different types of protocols out there. I mean, how many protocols do y'all cover? I mean, RDP, RFX. I mean, how many protocols do you guys cover out there?
I don't know. Let's see whether we can. Let's go. Can I share my screen?
Sure. Give me 1 second. Simon, I'll give you ability to let me scroll down the list.
Let's see if this works, shall we? It might not work. But I mean, in short, to answer your questions, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, right? Is that we try and stay completely independent, and we try and do a good job of ensuring that we allow people to connect to any form of cloud. You guys can see my screen now?
Sure can, Simon.
Okay, good. I'm not sure how big or small it is. Sadly, my son decided to steal my two normal monitors that I had, and I've ended up with what lots of people I'm sure would love, which is an Asus ultra-wide monitor. But when it comes to screen sharing,
looks good. Looks good. I can even read your password.
Doesn't do a very good job. But yeah, I mean, there you go. Right, I'm currently running the iGel management platform on a Windows machine. It could be run on a Linux machine. It could be on-prem. Could be in the cloud. This is the management console. It allows me to manage hundreds of thousands of devices. We've actually got quite a few accounts now who are north of 120,000 seats. They've decided to either replace Windows or replace their Dell or HP thin client operating system with the iGel OS. So it's iGel OS sat on a Dell thin client, iGel OS sat on an HP thin client, iGel OS sat on whatever. And yeah, on the left-hand side there, you can just see the sessions, right? So fully support Citrix, support the Workspace app. We've got native RDP support in there, VMware Horizon. We can go with No Machine. We can go with Parallels. We can go with ThinLink. We go all the way down to Teradici, PC over IP. And, last but not least, I think most people are probably aware of the fact that, we connect using the new RDP core technology up into a WVD environment. And so it really does give us the ability to, from an iGel operating system to, connect into any of those different cloud workspaces, which I suppose is a question in itself, right? Because when you talk about user experience, one of the downsides that we've got at the moment is that as we are constantly updating the back-end infrastructure, one of the things that needs to be done is that the endpoint needs to be reconfigured. And I would argue that that's probably happening more often than it ever used to, right? If I go back and I think about you know, when I was deploying Citrix environments back in 2001 and 2005, I used to deploy Citrix and I used to set up all the clients. It would take me 3-4 weeks to do it, and then that would be it. It would be like that for the next 3 years, and it wouldn't ever change. So in some cases, those Citrix environments just carried on working for years and years and years. Whereas now we're in a world where the cloud and Citrix and Microsoft, they're constantly updating their infrastructure, and there is a need to make sure that the client is being reconfigured and updated so that you can obviously see all of those features. So having that level of control and giving people those different choices to, you know, one day connect to an on-prem, the next day connect to something in the cloud, and oh, now we're moving over to WVD for an evaluation. Oh no, we're not. We're going back to Citrix because we want to carry on using that functionality. I mean, that's really what we're all about.
Yeah, we run into the same thing. I mean, customers, this year I'm running on Citrix. I had a problem with Citrix. Now I'm going to move to VMware. I'm going to move to Azure. Going to move to Amazon. So with our Profile Unity and technologies, so it's a great blend. You know, today you can be running Citrix. Tomorrow you're actually in the cloud. Who cares? They really, at the end of the day, the user shouldn't care. It's what they can, you know, get their work done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got a few questions that popped in. And this one I think kind of fits in here. David asked, pardon my ignorance, but are you saying I can install over the built-in OS of Dell Wise thin clients?
Yeah, I know that's an IGEL question, but I want to expand upon that question because that's the direction I wanted to go. Is that so answering that along with this question is, so the Edge OS, Simon, this is I would say just enough, but it's actually more robust than that. It's just enough to get you onto usually your Windows session. Could be another type of a session too. Parallels offers other things to virtualize, but just enough to start your Citrix session. And I say just enough, but it's a very robust Edge OS, so it gives you all that management framework, right? And then you can run it, to his point, right? What can you run it on? Can I run it on old thin clients? Can I run it on old PCs? Can I run it on new PCs? Can I run it on Mac? Can I run it on a tablet? Where can I run it? Just, you know, to have a level playing field, so I don't have to pay my Windows tax twice. So I don't pay a Windows tax on the endpoint and Windows tax on the cloud.
That's right. I've got this is an old Lenovo IBM laptop in front of me here. This runs IGEL OS on it. So typically any x86 device could run IGEL OS, and it's an ISO that you would typically download. If you want to put it in SCCM, you want to put it in group policy, however you would normally deploy an operating system, or you can plug a little USB key in the side and deploy it that way. You can convert a device or run the operating system live off that key. But in answer to your question, it's commonly deployed onto Dell or HP thin clients. You know, they do make extremely good thin clients at a very, very good price point. You know, if we're looking at
you would boot directly into IGEL Edge OS? I know the answer.
Boot directly, right. Yes. We would actually wipe the thin OS or the existing operating system that was on that device. It doesn't run in a virtualized container. It basically just says, you know what, the moment you
Windows embedded, or Windows embedded, we used to call it. What's the new term for the Windows 10 one? Maybe that is Windows embedded.
Windows 10 IoT.
Right. How's this better than that?
Well, real simple, which is you got to ask yourself, why are you moving to VDI in the first place? Why are you going to put your Windows desktop and your Windows applications into the cloud? That's typically because you want single image management, you want to use things like FlexApp, you want to do profile management independently, you want to be able to monitor things, secure things, patch things, all of the reasons why we move Windows to the cloud. The last thing you then want to go and do is have Windows on the edge, because then you're undoing and undermining all of the good things.
And you're paying for Windows twice.
Right? It's like, oh, hey, Mr. CFO, we're going to move to Citrix. We're going to be more secure. We're going to save ourselves loads and loads of time. Please, can I have the money to deploy Citrix? No, sure, no problem at all. Oh, and then I'm going to deploy Windows on the endpoint, and I'm going to spend a load more time and money managing securing Windows on the endpoint. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Think about the attack surface out there. If I remove Windows from that local machine in that guy's house, where his kids are, downloading all kind of crap, your IGL OS is 1,000 times more secure, smaller, can run a lot of diverse hardware. So, yeah, just the attack surface alone for me is
Yeah.
Let's talk about that angle for a second. So let's say COVID or anything. If somebody's been sent to work from home, you want a secure endpoint, and you need to do this in a hurry. So you ask them, do you have a PC at home that you could use? And there's big problems with that, right? If they just use Windows, how can you make that a secure PC? And so 9 to 5, I can use it as for working purposes, and after maybe I go back to using it separately for doing my home accounting and whatever else, and playing Minecraft.
That is exactly where this little UD pocket. I've lost my screen here. You guys can see that?
I still see you.
Yeah.
Okay, they're about the size of my thumb. USB key sits quite happily on my key ring. This contains the IGEL operating system. Very simply, this machine is running Windows 10. It actually runs Windows 10 very badly. It's probably only got 2 or 4 gigs. I mean, it boots, don't get me wrong, but if you open up more than a couple of applications, it dies. This was, before Christmas this year, this was my son's work from home laptop. So very simply what happens is we put that USB key in, we switch the machine on, we dual boot, and instead of running the operating system Windows off the hard disk, we now run the IGEL operating system off the USB key live. That's a 64-bit read-only IGEL operating system based on Ubuntu. You've got a secure web browser in there. You've got the Citrix client, the VMware client. To your point, you run that all day. The moment I pull this USB key out, the machine will reboot, and it'll go, oh, I'm just going to boot off the hard disk, and it goes back to Windows 10, and my phone can go back to playing Minecraft, etc.
Totally secure. Yep.
Totally secure. Having said all of that, he now has a £1,000, gaming PC, and apparently he doesn't need that laptop anymore. So what do I know? But your point is right. There's a lot of kit out there that can be reused, right?
To answer that guy's question earlier, do you have a link on your website that you can post? Because he probably wants to know specific Dell models.
Yes.
I'm assuming you don't support all of them. Like a Teradata device, can I take a Teradata device and exactly. So, do you have a list of devices?
We do. We'll get that. We'll get that URL over. That URL doesn't actually have a definitive list. Kyle can probably give you a much more technical answer than I can. But typically, if it's an old device that's running sort of like an old processor chip, or it's ARM, then it may not work. If it's an x86 and it was running Windows Embedded or one of the more recent Dell OSs, then it would be fine.
Yep. Check out this use case. So, got a customer and they're hiring people, all across the United States. So they'll do their paperwork, do their interview process, then they send them a UD Pocket and say, plug this in and let it run for 24 hours. And it's being monitored by Stratosphere. They actually use that as part of the hiring process to determine, do you have a solid internet connection? Who's your ISP? What's the bandwidth at your house? They can't tell anything about the house, but they can tell connectivity type information. So at that point, they know, hey, this guy is on Comcast Business. He's in Boise, Idaho. His internet connection looks pretty solid. So then they offer him a job or say, you have to go in the office. It's that simple. If you don't have enough bandwidth, which I don't at my house, I've got all of 3 meg on a good day. So they would never hire me. And I'm fortunate that, Jason Smith and my company allows me to work from the sticks with a low bandwidth. But I thought it was a really interesting use case because they're actually using it as part of the hiring process to make sure that you can actually function from home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So one of the things you guys announced lately was compatibility with Raspberry Pi devices. And some people may think, well, now I can just go to my basement and go to the electronics store or buy something online and assemble something. But what's a best practice way to take advantage of your support of Raspberry Pi without doing a homebrew kit, which is probably not recommended by anybody?
Yeah. with in computing, again, I'm not sure how good my
Yes, yep.
USB camera's looking. This is the in computing device. Comes in a nice shade of yellow to show that it's an iGel device.
Nice.
Comes with iGel OS built in. Power, 2 HDMI ports. I actually use the 2 little screws on the back, hang it on the back of my monitor. It's got Wi-Fi built in. It's got Bluetooth built in. So actually, as it sits behind my monitor, all I need to do is power the thing up. Again, I boot straight into the iGel OS. I've then got Chromium web browser. I've then got the Citrix client on it at the moment, and that obviously then gives me great access into my Citrix environment at a very, very low cost price point.
How much is that? How much is that thing?
I'm going to say, Carl, do you know off the top of your head? I'm going to say $169, something like that.
Yeah, it's something in that neighborhood. It may be a little less, but yeah,
I
it's
could
in
buy
the
that.
150 range.
I could buy that, buy a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse, and I'm ready to run, basically.
You're ready. You're ready to run. Yeah. 100%.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that could work for anybody's computing needs, not just an organization, but heck, give that to my mother-in-law, and
Exactly.
he has a browser.
As they could give it, I'm gonna give one of those to my mother. Be done with it.
So let's talk about that though. So then you roll out the Edge OS everywhere for your organization. The beauty though comes in, how do you manage all those endpoints? And that's where you guys have some centralized management. So this is not really a homebrew mother-in-law thing. This is or buy it for your kids. This is an enterprise scalable solution. And how do you, because you end up with a lot of endpoints, and maybe it's a mixture. Maybe you had some in computing Raspberry Pi, maybe you're repurposing some old Dell 5050 machines, maybe you got Macs in there, but they're all running the Edge OS. Can you give us a view on what you offer to manage all those endpoints then?
Yeah, sure. So as soon as you buy a license of iGel, you can, again, hopefully you can now see on my screen, just out of my background, I'm simply running iGel OS in a virtual machine at the moment, right? On my Windows device. I can completely customize that desktop, as you can see. I can put any old wallpaper on it. You can see there I've got connection to my Citrix environment. I can connect into WVD if I want to. That will quite happily take me off and connect me into the iGel WVD environment. If I go and click on the Citrix one, it will connect to my Citrix environment, get me all of my applications. As we've all discussed, that machine is actually connecting, using the standard protocols that we spoke to into those cloud-based environments. But from a management point of view, it's typically just an HTTPS secure connection back out over the internet, particularly in today's world, back out over the internet to something we call the iGel Cloud Gateway, which is a secure appliance, which then brokers the connection to that management console that I showed you before. And once you're in that management console, you can then create what's called profiles, and those profiles can be assigned to different users and different groups of machines. So I could have 20,000 machines in my management console configured with the profile that says you're going to have the Citrix icon. I could have another 20,000 machines that say you're going to have the VMware icon. And I can drag and drop, I can move those around, I can set different policies. I can set this up in what we call desktop mode. So, what you can see here in front of you is the user's got access to the iGel desktop before they log into their environment. Or alternatively, I could put it into like an appliance or a kiosk mode where perhaps just the web browser boots up, it goes into a Citrix workspace, that's the only thing they can do. Or perhaps we just automatically pass their credentials through and we sign them into Citrix and we just show them the desktop. And ultimately what ends up happening in the majority of cases is that the iGel operating system becomes invisible. And I think this is an interesting topic to discuss perhaps with you guys, right? Which is, what is an operating system? What part does an operating system play in relation to user experience moving forward? Because actually, an operating system back in 1985 when Windows, back in the day when Windows 95, Windows XP came about. There's an argument that the operating system was doing two things. It was communicating with the hardware, and it was providing you your window manager and your UI. Well, today, that UI and those windows that you're being provided, your workspace is being provided from the cloud.
Yep.
And all you actually need is an operating system to connect you to that cloud and to control what's going on in terms of the hardware, who's talking to the CPU, the memory, the bus, and all that sort of stuff. So for lots of instances, the Agile OS is invisible, right? It is an operating system, as boring as it may sound, but the point is it's a very secure, easy to manage operating system that sits there and says, when I boot this machine up, I'm just going to concentrate on getting my user's workspace down to the user as quickly as possible. And hence, the user probably fires up iGel, fires up that IBM laptop that I got or that in-computing device that we have, and instead of seeing the Agile OS, they just go straight in. There's my Windows 10 environment that's being essentially managed from the cloud. So,
and I think the neat thing is, and I was impressed years ago when I first saw the Edge OS, it runs a flavor of Ubuntu, right? But
that's right.
There's no training. There's no end user training involved much. It's like they understand how it works because there's a start menu in there. There's a familiar looking Citrix icon on there that they open up because maybe they've used that before. So the learning curve is very, very short for giving this to users.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the biggest thing here is that because it can be installed on an x86 device or an old thin client that you thought wasn't going to be able to connect to your new Citrix cloud environment because you need MS Teams support. Customers save a huge amount of money in terms of capex, right? I mean, it's like everyone's got these line items that say, right, I'm going to spend 1.5 million on endpoints when I move to the Citrix cloud. It's like, okay, well, you don't need to spend 1.5 million for a start. And then secondly, because you're moving to Agile on the edge and you're moving potentially away from Windows embedded, your management cost goes down. I did an interview only last week with a bakery in the UK, and they simply said, they had 3 people every other Tuesday worrying about patching, testing the patching, deploying the patching, rolling the patches back, all on their Windows environments. They moved to Agile. They can't remember the last time they sent out a patch.
Right.
And if they do, it's just a case of, drag and drop on the right-hand side. So, here you can see I've got my Agile internal. You can see that this device has gone green on the left here. I can see the MAC address. I can see what it's running. But I can also see that I've applied a load of policies to it on the right-hand side there.
Nice.
So simple, very, very simple.
So if you have the connector, if you can show the connector ID, I'm going to lead us towards that in a moment, at least just where you would put in the URL. If Simon, if you don't have it, Kyle, if you've got something that has it in it. If not, I can use a screenshot. But so I'm going to
just bring it up. It's under accessories.
Sorry, where am I going?
In the UMS on the profile, just go under accessories. And then scroll down to the bottom. Just pick a profile, any profile.
Yeah,
just edit the profile.
A few performance challenges going on here. My machine, go to webinar, is causing my machine to bomb out. In fact, I'm going to ask, can somebody give Kyle the thingy or hand over, because my camera is basically.
Yep, Kyle, you have it where you can bring it up. So while Kyle's working on that, where I'm going with that is, so you end up with the users actually using their virtual environment a lot of times upstream somewhere on-prem or in the cloud, and that's a place where now Stratosphere, Liquidware Stratosphere User Experience is the name of our solution. That's the place where Stratosphere can run. There's an agent that sits on that Windows machine and tells you the user experience within your virtual environment. Okay, so that's one piece. But what we're going to miss when you get a help desk call under the scenario, and this is a common scenario, people are remoting in to get to their ultimate desktop in the cloud, Many times that's Windows. It could be WVD, it could be Amazon Workspaces, Citrix, VMware, it could be any of those. And that's a place where the Citrix connector ID, that's what our agent's called, monitors for user experience. And then if you have any issues with user experience, trending in the wrong direction or get a help desk call, you can resolve that very quickly because we monitor that and we gather data from those desktops. Once you what you don't have visibility in, unless you go the direction I'm about to tell you, is that on the iGel Edge OS, work from home or work from anywhere, or maybe a hotel, work from anywhere, could be another regional office. You don't know the connectivity, the performance of that machine, of that repurposed machine, and perhaps it is a little old that you're running it on, so it's kind of stretching the limits of it. Perhaps that's okay, but you have no idea when a person calls the help desk what machine they're logging in from, the metrics on it, you know, the user experience metrics here, and the connectivity, that first mile of connectivity, and all the way to the cloud, you know, the network. To Simon's point about home connectivity, you have no idea unless you also run Stratosphere on the Edge OS. And this is where our collaboration came in. We purpose-built an agent for the iGel Edge OS. It can simply be turned on by putting in a URL that reports back to the same virtual appliance for Stratosphere, and now it gives you a composite user experience score of your desktop in the cloud, your Edge OS, and everything in between. So you get a complete picture. You're not flying blind when someone calls the help desk. So Kyle's got that up now. This is exactly in the management system where you would put in the URL of your Stratosphere server where it says demo.liquidware.com. I've done this myself in a virtual machine. Chris, what are the other two fields? I know they're optional.
Just machine groups and user groups. So, you know, if I'm supporting a specific customer, I need this user. So this can be pre-configured too. So when they ship out those machines or assign those profiles, you know, ship me a UD pocket, my user group should be IT. So it's being shipped to me. So again, Kyle can control that from his corporate office, from the management console, and drop into specific machine groups or user groups inside of Stratosphere.
Right. Now, Chris, I'm going to ask you if you would like to review some of the metrics that we get in, and if you've got the ability to share anything you want to share, that now would be a good time. And while you're looking at that, Ray, we have any questions that have come in?
We have a lot of questions. I've just been looking for the point to get it in edgewise. So here's a comment actually from David saying we're currently using HP MT44 thin client laptops with iGels, and it works great. So that's more of a comment than anything else. We've got a few. That's nice. Someone asked, is iGel a hypervisor? If not, is this a replacement for Windows OS?
Second answer there. So it is not a hypervisor. It is a replacement for Windows OS.
But Microsoft shouldn't feel threatened, right? Because you're getting them ultimately usually to a Windows
desktop. Correct. Exactly that. And actually, what do Microsoft care about? Azure, right? Microsoft,
right.
Windows running in Azure, applications, data in Azure. So yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So Jeffrey asked, does this meet PCI compliance standards?
Kyle, over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, PCI is a little tricky because usually this is, right, you're talking about an entire, it can be, right? Obviously, it depends on which system you're connecting to and which workspace and things of that nature, but there are customers in the PCI compliance space that are running iGel. So it is possible. Obviously, you know, it's based off the guidelines and things of that nature, but it can be done.
Okay. Here's another question. Brian asked, I have dual boot into thin OS, and then a long string of numbers. I'm not going to try to pull those out unless we need to. Mobile devices with UD Pocket, and it works well. So another shout out there that things are looking great. Someone asked, are there routine updates to the boot drive that need to be performed?
Question for Kyle.
So I mean, yeah, we have what we call firmware upgrades, right? Usually quarterly or so. I mean, it is an operating system, so sometimes the semantics get lost because we do call it a firmware. But it's actually the operating system. But generally, at least once a quarter, there are updates to it. So since all the alliance, like like yourselves, right? If you guys make a change to the agent or whatever that needs to be integrated into that, right? Then obviously there would be a firmware update from that standpoint. But there's general updates, just features, functionality, as well as kernel changes and things of that nature. So quarterly is usually, but the last year has been a change, so there's been a lot of more frequent updates, especially with optimizations of unified communication integrations between the workspace clients and things of that nature. So, but yeah, I mean it's at least quarterly, but there's always new features, functionality, hardware support, things of that nature that get rolled into the firmware upgrades all the time.
Great. Jonathan asked, is there a version of the UD Pocket or other iGel devices that would work, run on ARM devices? He's thinking of the ARM chips from Apple.
Not at the moment. The only ARM piece of hardware that we officially support today is the N Computing Raspberry Pi device. That's a fairly recent announcement, and so at the moment, that does only support connection to a Citrix environment and/or comes with a Chromium browser. You could expect more to come from iGel in the ARM space and in terms of additional clients as we sort of move forward. But at the moment, as our first dive into the ARM chipset, we partnered with N Computing, and that's the only one that it's officially supported on. But I think it makes perfect sense if you look at what is going on in the chipset world at the moment. You look at what Microsoft is doing, you look at what others are doing. Lots and lots of people are moving to an ARM platform because of battery life, because of performance, and so you can expect us to continue to innovate in that particular area, I think.
Okay. Let's see. Someone asked, well, this is Brian. He asked, is the N Computing powerful enough for unified communication plugins like Zoom for VDI, WebEx for VDI, Teams optimization, Jabber for VDI, etc.?
Yeah, Kyle, over to you. We've been talking about this only this morning. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously the Pis have increased, and actually we have a video out there of two of our our evangelists doing a Teams call between it using Citrix. So it can be done. The trick is all the integrations, that we've alluded to. A lot of those are obviously in the x86. So the ARM, to Simon's point, is relatively new. So it's a little different and a little limited in that case. But they are powerful enough to do it, and we do have videos of iGel people pulling it off. So it is real.
Yeah. Most of the time when I'm monitoring,
sorry, go on.
A lot of times when I'm monitoring, so a customer, they got a Raspberry Pi at a Citrix CUCG, they go home, they load on the ICA receiver or listener onto it, they connect their Citrix machine and say, oh, wow, this thing is cool. Then I go show them the data in Stratosphere. It's like Stratosphere says, you're not getting any compression on your HDX protocol. And it's because the Raspberry Pi doesn't have enough computing power, so it turns off compression, which makes your server do more. Is that true under yours as well? Or, because everybody thinks, oh, I'm gonna go buy a Raspberry Pi. Hold on, that compute power has to go somewhere, and it is going to affect your network as well. So, guys, balance that Raspberry Pi with reality out there, because my Stratosphere data will show you just, your network bandwidth goes up because you're not doing compression, and your server has to do more work. So reality has to step in somewhere physically.
Right. So for certain use cases, it could be a good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For certain use cases, look, I'm, again, I know you guys are going to get bored of me talking about this, but for one reason or another, my CPU at the moment is currently spiked at, I don't know what it is, 79%, right? Every single one of your videos is all like jittery and slow. I think you guys have said I'm coming through okay, but as I'm talking, I'm about 3 seconds behind. So there's something quirky with my Windows machine and go to meeting today, but it just shows and demonstrates how off-putting it is, when you're trying to have a conversation and you're trying to make sure that the video is in sync with the audio. To Chris's point, that power's got to go somewhere, and it's either going to hit your server, or if you don't want to hit your server, you need to offload it on the endpoint. And at that point, I would suggest that most of our customers choose a true x86 device that's got, a decent CPU and a decent RAM in it, just to handle that additional compression and that offloading.
There's tons and tons of use cases though where a Raspberry Pi might suffice, right? Call centers and other places, and that would be just fine.
And I think that's the future of work, right? Are we going to have this big return to work, or are we going to find that people are going to go back and they're going to go into the offices to have meetings? Lots and lots of our customers are actually looking at the Raspberry Pi device to go into meeting rooms, right? So that people, or shared workspaces, so that people can literally just log on to a device, get access to a Citrix desktop, and then go home and carry on working. So I do think that they definitely do have a place. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. Thanks,
Simon. Joe says you sounds like you need Stratosphere to help figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
Good segue.
I think that's a smart idea.
So we've got a lot of questions going here still, and there's a few here that I want to make sure we get in here. Someone asked, do you have any integration with ServiceNow?
Yep. Well, it's a good area to let Chris talk about that as he goes into the Stratosphere data that we can see on the endpoints, because between Chris doing most of the work, actually did some front end work on ServiceNow. Yes, we have integration with ServiceNow. We can feed the metrics that you'll see in let's just describe that. The metrics that you'll see out of this, you can also feed any of those into ServiceNow with the plugin that we have developed with a partner of ours. So that's a great question. And iGel Edge OS metrics could flow in as well. So this gives a conduit for that. So yes, to that. Chris, I'm going to cut over to you and let you describe some of the metrics we'd be able to see from that endpoint.
Yeah, can you see my screen here?
Yep, looks good. I can read all the way down to percentage and numbers, 77% exact. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, Stratosphere has a massive amount of data, and for years our customers have been asking us, hey, I need this in Remedy, I need this in Unicenter, I want to put it into Splunk. So we do have a very rich API available with Stratosphere. And people are plugging up Power BI, Tableau, all kind of stuff, pulling our data in here. So here I've got Wi-Fi information, what frequency. So you were talking about earlier, don't run 5 gigahertz, run 2.4. I can prove that for you with Stratosphere. But here, this is my ServiceNow, so I'm pumping data from Stratosphere into ServiceNow through what's called a mid server. And I actually went and did a search, and I found an iGel machine. So this is iGel 11 OS, even though there's a version 11.03.530. So this is actually an iGel machine where I had the Stratosphere agent installed on it, and it's actually reporting to ServiceNow. So I can look it up by user in the latest version that just came out a couple of weeks ago. So I type in Jason Smith, then show me the machines that Jason Smith was associated with, even down to his iGel box. So this UD Pocket was installed on a MicroStar International Limited GS. I mean, that's the information coming from the motherboard. There's the manufacturer. There's the serial number, description. It was a single CPU, 3.7 gigahertz, 8 cores. 15 gigabytes of RAM. So it's a decent little box. But now I've got all this data right here in ServiceNow. I don't have to ask my user. I can correlate Jason Smith's at-home work environment and look at his, what is his Wi-Fi like at his house, and have that data directly in ServiceNow. Yep. Any questions on that? I know we had a lot of stuff.
That's great. There. That's great. That's just some of the metrics you'd be able to get from that endpoint. So see how it's configured. Another way that we can be used. A collaboration with iGel is when customers approach iGel and say, this is great, sounds great on paper, what machines could I actually just repurpose for iGel? And that's where Stratosphere independently, before the project begins, can run an assessment. Chris, you want to talk about how that would be done?
Yeah. So, I'm looking to move from 1,000 physical machines, because everybody's got their workstations, and I want to move to Azure, to Amazon, to Citrix, to Horizon. Well, first thing I need to know is what are these users using? So what kind of machines do they have in the field? Asset management, stuff like that. How much CPU, memory, disk, and network? Do they meet the minimum IGEL requirements? How is their Wi-Fi statistics? What applications are they running? Because I got all these people sitting all over the country, so I need to know what applications are installed on their machine and what are they using. So the assessment component is who's in my environment? What do they have? What are they using? And what kind of infrastructure do I have in the field? So when I ship that guy a UD Pocket, he plugs it in and boots that machine up. Is it supported? Is it a 6-year-old machine that really just need to throw in the trash? Even down to the monitor. I can tell you the resolution of the monitor that he has plugged into that device. So does it meet my minimum standards? Is he running 1 monitor, 2 monitors? So the assessment component is really the big reason that VDI or cloud fails, because I didn't do that assessment. I didn't know the accounting has this little calculator that they use to cut paychecks. So when I move them into VDI, that little calculator's not there. They can't cut paychecks because I didn't do an assessment.
Right.
Very critical. Very critical.
So you may be able to find out that you could repurpose a lot of the machines that you never thought that you thought they were end of life. Repurpose it because it doesn't take a lot to run. What's the minimum requirements, Kyle, for the Edge OS?
It's basically 2, 2, and 2, right? So 2 gigahertz, 2 gig of RAM, and then 2 gig of space on the hard drive, whatever.
So
and if they don't have enough hard drive space, you just use the Pocket, and that becomes the hard drive. And as long as you get the 2 and 2, you're good.
So we take the minimum requirements, Chris, right? And we could plug those in and run an assessment against that. And maybe you don't want just minimum. Maybe you decide you need more powerful things in there for multimedia and things like we were discussing earlier, that you need more powerful endpoints to do this sort of thing. So you set the threshold, you run the assessment, and you say, unbelievable. We had thousands of machines that we can put the Edge OS on. We were thinking about putting Windows on, but why bother? Because now we've shifted to a hosted desktop, and we can repurpose these endpoints. So a lot of times the math works out just based on hardware replacement alone between IGEL, Stratosphere, get into a project, and the going back to my point earlier about ROI, you can see incredible ROI by shifting over and repurposing hardware alone that you thought maybe it was at the end of life.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I'd say, Jason, is I'm seeing a lot of people now talk about digital experience monitoring, right? Measuring user experience as opposed to just the the CPU and the memory of a VDI environment, or to the point, your point, a CPU or the memory on the IGEL device, right? If we're going to, as a world, we're going to continue to work from anywhere. Organizations that I'm speaking to appear to be very much laser focused now on, okay, we've got a strategy. It's probably going to include some form of VDI, desktop as a service. But what we need to do is balance, how do we ensure productivity, user well-being. I've got some customers who said to me, we need to monitor our users because we don't want them to burn out and overwork. Some people are saying, well, we need to monitor our call center because we want to actually demonstrate that user productivity has gone up and that people can take more calls and can open up, do more when they're working from home because they're more focused than when they were in the office.
Right.
So I think there's a real need now for all of us in this EUC space to take a look at tools like yourselves, to put in place, dare I say, an operating system like IGEL, right, that starts to become significantly more invisible, that doesn't have a 20-minute update every Tuesday where someone has to go and make a cup of tea, whatever. People really do care about user experience far more than they ever have done before. And just being able to monitor that, measure that, and report that back to the business.
We were asked, it's good you bring this up. We were asked middle of last year stuff, and that's great. I've got people working from home, but now can you help me tell me what they're doing? And we're like, all right, let's talk about compliance first, because that matters, right? Especially in Europe, we don't want to spy on them or become net nanny down to the single process level. But what we can do is we have reports that can say, all right, let's agree as a management team that the user should be in Microsoft Word, one of those apps. They should also be, of course, using their browser part of the day. They should also be using this productivity app and that one. Now let's look, what percentage of the day are they using just those apps, right? So you're not spying on them so much, but then you start to see user productivity that they're using those apps 60 to 70% of the time. And that those users or groups are being productive.
Well, not only that, but I can tell in Stratosphere what's in the foreground. So, Jason, just because you open up all those applications and you think you're being, sneaky, I can tell that you're actually on a web video watching a YouTube video, and that was in the foreground all day long.
Active applications.
Yep.
Ray,
the applications are running.
You had a winner to advertise? You're on mute.
Sean Costello.
Sean Costello is the winner of the Yeti Bluetooth package. I know we're a little bit over, and I know some people might have to jump off, so I wanted to make sure that we announce that out there. I do still see some other questions out there, so I don't know if we want to go back to the questions a little bit and see what we have, but I don't know if anyone has a hard stop going that prevents that. So
I think that's a good idea. We could go on for another 9 minutes or so, I believe, most of us.
Okay. All right. So a few things here. Someone asked about, Jonathan asked about the Raspberry Pis that we were talking about, and they asked, were we talking about Raspberry Pi 3 or 4, or doesn't matter, I guess?
The end computing device is a Raspberry Pi 4, I believe, Carl, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
On the board.
Probably.
Okay. Let's see. So Andy talked about how important is it to add a monitoring system to the ARM devices? Is performance monitoring a greater concern there? Kind of going back to the ARM question.
Yeah, especially if they're still on a Wi-Fi network, whether it's an Intel device or an ARM device, is their network healthy at home? Who is their ISP? CPU, memory, disk, and network, not that big a deal. But I still want to be able to monitor those end users and their connection back to Azure or Amazon or whatever, because users call up and say, hey, Citrix sucks, hey, Horizon sucks, give me back my laptop. When in reality it's their Wi-Fi. You just lock it back down to 2.4 gigahertz and call it a day. When I'm diagnosed Citrix and Horizon and Amazon and Azure, 95-98% of the time, it's not the broker. It's not the hypervisor. It's a lot of time it's something at their house. So yeah, even though the Raspberry Pi is a lockdown device, and still the IGL OS is a lockdown device, I still need to know those connectivity capabilities at their house.
Okay.
The last mile, we kind of termed it, or in some cases, actually one of our engineers started calling it the first mile. From that user to my system, I need to be able to understand that connection point.
Yeah, it's another interesting point to make, right, about this whole concept of the big return to work. Again, I was talking to a rather large investment bank recently, and an insurance company, in fact, and when they do go back, and they desperately want their employees to go back to work, at least in some form, their corporate network is no longer going to be a corporate network. Their corporate network will become regarded as dirty as the home network that their employees are currently running on, right? So there's this sort of change in mentality at the moment that's taken place, which is you no longer have a locked down managed corporate PC that you used to have, that used to sit inside the network, and it was patched and updated when you were inside the network. And when you were inside the network, everything was safe, and when you went home, you had to use a VPN. Those days are gone. People are looking at, how do I deliver a workspace to a user when they're at home, when they're in the coffee shop, or when they're in one of the many offices that they may well have in one of the many rooms. So the network and the device that people are going to be using moving forward is probably going to be a little bit less trusted than it's been historically. It may be a little bit less unknown. And so I think, Chris, to your point, we're not just talking about monitoring user experience for people who are working from home. We're monitoring user experience regardless of where people are going to be in the future, right? And in many cases, those, I know for ourselves, for instance, we've our strategy, at least at the moment, is to look at more shared office space than it is dedicated office space, right? Which fundamentally means that that could be anywhere, right? I'll just have a membership that allows me to walk into about 4 or 5 different offices, but IT still need to have a level of visibility, which you get with something like Stratosphere that, they probably don't have today.
Yep. No, a lot of people were interested in that contest. I want to plug our other contest while we still got many people listening to us. We just launched one yesterday. It's a social media contest, basically LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. If you see any of our posts and you make them go viral, we'll count how many shares or likes you got, and we're giving away a $100 Amazon gift card per week for the next 5 weeks. The threshold right now is pretty darn low because we just started this. So get on there and start sharing. You may be surprised if you get 5, 10, 15, you might win this week's. We'll just have to see how that ramps up as we go along. We'll announce those after the end of the week. I think we decide at the end of the Fridays. So another contest that you can enter there. And it showcases our Flex app innovation mainly. A lot of our posts talk about our Flex app innovations and how you can package apps once and things like that. So wanted to give that a plug. Back to the questions, Ray.
Yeah, also, if you are bummed that you didn't win the Yeti Bluetooth thing, we have another webinar tomorrow that we're giving away another one. So if you hit liquidware.com and go over there, you can follow the link, register for that webinar, and get another chance. Someone asked, can you point an iGel device to a non-cloud-based Citrix deployment? So, something on-prem.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. iGel's been around 20 years. Yeah, it doesn't matter where your Citrix environment is. If it's on-prem, if it's in the cloud, doesn't matter. And I would say that in the last 12 months, we've seen a number of customers who have used the iGel OS, as my son did on that laptop, not to connect into any form of VDI or desktop as a service environment, but purely just to consume SaaS-based applications. If your employee needs access to the web via Chrome, Chromium, Firefox, because that's where your applications are, and you want a secure OS to do that, maybe you're a training facility, maybe you're education, maybe it's being used in a library or something along those lines, then that's another use case, right? It's a slim operating system, easy to manage, very secure, that's got a web browser and those connections into VDI. So yeah, a couple of options there for you.
Nice.
Excellent. Shireen asks, will Stratosphere give complete details about login status and find issues like GPOs, user profile, etc.? We have Citrix layered with, she says, Unity, so I'm guessing Profile Unity?
Unidesk.
Or, okay.
Unidesk. Yeah. So yeah, there is a module in Stratosphere called Login Breakdown. It is full. Every GPO, every batch file, every PowerShell script that ran during the login process is recorded. Not only how much CPU, but did it fail? Warnings, domain controller. It's full login breakdown. Check out our community site, community.liquidware.com. There's some pretty decent details about login breakdown up there. Yeah,
she may be talking about Profile Unity, because I've heard several of our customers call Profile Unity Unity.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if there's Profile Unity's running, I can diagnose Profile Unity. I diagnose AppSense, or roaming profiles. So the cool thing, I get on my iGel machine, I hit the cloud, and it still takes me 5 minutes to log in. And I'm blaming iGel or Citrix. It's not iGel or Citrix. It's the login process. So Stratosphere does have full login breakdown for the users. Yep.
So going back to the ARM question, it seems like this was a popular topic here today. Someone asked, as far as the Liquidware side, what are the plans for ARM support, if there are any?
Not really. I mean, we run on top of the iGel OS. So our agent, if iGel OS supports ARM, our agent would also support it. May have to compile it with different libraries. But as far as us supporting, Stratosphere supports Windows, Linux, and Mac. The new Mac coming with the M1 processor, so we're having to do some recompiles for that one. But basically, Windows, Linux, and Mac, that's the operating systems that Stratosphere supports. And then we have the iGels and the other flavors of the ThinOS is out there as well. But really just supporting an ARM, not really. It's Windows, Linux, Mac, things like that, or IGL running on the ARM that we would support.
Okay, I think maybe we can get to at least one more question here. And someone asked, this is David, he asked, isn't it beneficial to keep the OS usable but locked down? My biggest challenge is the performance of RTAV through the VM into the UD3. Let's see here. One way we aided that situation is by running Teams and Zoom on the iGel OS device itself.
Yeah. Carl can probably comment to that. My guess is that this person is running VMware Horizon, which doesn't currently offer Teams offloading to the iGel device, and so what they've probably tried is to use the RTAV protocol, but that's probably going to end up putting a load on the host itself, on the VDI host. So one of the things that we can do, and you probably saw it when I brought up the iGel desktop before, is that we can have Linux versions of Zoom and of Teams and VPN clients and other tools and applications deployed natively. So there's nothing stopping me going into my iGel OS, and in addition to opening up a web browser, connecting in Citrix, I can also run a local version, a local Linux version of Teams or Zoom, and just use it like I would a normal app. So there's no offloading to do. But that's an area that we continue to sort of push the other vendors on. There's a huge amount of pressure at the moment on all of the VDI desktop as a service vendors to ensure that they fully support MS Teams and Zoom offloading in virtual environments across all of the clients. Citrix, to be fair to them, has arguably got there significantly quicker than some of the others, but they are coming.
Excellent. I have another question here that says that iGel's clearly pivoted to software company with their OS, but do you still sell thin clients?
Kyle's going to nod. I'm going to shake my head. Yes, we do. Yes, we do sell thin clients. We've actually reduced the number of them. We still have a UD2, a UD3, and a UD7. And they're still great devices. We still sell them. There's still loads of them that go out every single month. They still come with a 5-year warranty. They've all been refreshed. They all
you have partnerships with LG too, though, and others that can fill that.
And that's the key, right? So we've got partnerships now in place with LG. We've got partnerships in place with Lenovo. We've obviously done end computing with ARM. There will be more to come as well. What we're trying to get to is a place where we offer choice. We've spent a lot of time today talking about the low end of devices like ARM devices, but there's a huge amount of organizations I could talk to you about that are still buying $600, $700 PCs, Lenovo mini PCs, Dell micro tower PCs, and they are coming out the factory with iGel OS put on them. I'm sure Pittsburgh Mercy won't mind me talking about, the fact that just ordered a load of Lenovo laptops. They were shipped out the factory with iGel OS on them. These things have got like 16 gig of RAM in them and the latest processors. Wow. They're very, very performant, but the point being is they don't want the management overhead of Windows at the edge anymore.
Okay, great.
Excellent. There's a few other questions and comments that I don't know that we'll get to. I know that Steve had a rather long set of questions here. A lot of that was kind of covered by talking about, work from home and how we address that, and the importance of assessment and baselining and whatnot. What I can say to Steve is, since we didn't have time with all the other questions to get on that, I looked to some of our future sessions. Actually, our next Unplugged session is kind of covering a little bit of that, where we're talking about this return to work, as Simon called it, and others call it the hybrid hybrid workforce now, where some people are back in the office and some people are working from home and going on from there, and how we handle that. So look for that in April. That's going to be another topic that we're going to have coming up, and talking about what those challenges are and some of the things that we're going down that route with. So I know that we're already over time, and I know that's going to take us down a whole nother hole on that one. So we'll save that one for a later date. And I know Jonathan just chimed in and said, work for home for the win. So, we'll go from there. But thank you, everyone, Kyle, Jason, Chris, and Simon, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone who joined us on today. This was probably the most number of questions that we've had on one of these Unplugged sessions to date. So
it was very great.
We might start thinking about making these longer, Jason. I don't know.
That's right. We had a lot of people on today.
Yeah, they always
a lot of people on today. I think it's because Kyle and Simon's reputation preceded them. So
I think what kept people on was Simon's accent. I think his English accent was really what. There's probably a lot of ladies out there won't know his number. Yeah.
Yep.
But St. Patrick's Day, it's close enough, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and have a Guinness now. That's right. From me and Carl, Jason, Ray, Chris, thank you very much. Great opportunity. Thanks to the tens and tens, hundreds of folks that joined. Thanks for sticking with us, and always a pleasure working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for being on the panel. Thanks for everything. This was a great one. Thanks, Ray.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.